I'm going to have to repeat that a little bit. Okay, so this is the line of where our section is going to be. We're going to be cutting through that door. We're just going to locate that. I'll use an X line to do that for now so that I can see where it cuts through the roof, where it cuts through the floor, things like that. Now I'm going to create an additional X lines, horizontal X lines that will be at the points where we're slicing through. And I'm just going to choose the, you know what, I'll choose the top of the truss and the bottom of the bottom chord. If I wanted to do a little bit more, I could probably copy that. And I think it's a good idea where it would actually cut through the chords itself. And so when we do our transverse, longitudinal section, those lines that I've drawn here are going to be where it cuts through the roof. So I could actually start doing that now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop some lines down from this floor plan here. Oops, didn't want to explode. I want an X line. I want vertical. Okay, then I'm going to actually start my drawing now. So I'll choose the detail layer. A detail, that's our typical line layer. Just grab that one there. Now, just for ease of seeing what's going on here, I'm going to move this closer. So we can see how these two relate. And I'm going to do a rectangle now. So the rectangle, I'll start it off in the corner here and go to the corner here. But then I have to extend it out 16 inches on the sides because that's 16 inches overhang on each side. Now at this point here, we're actually sectioning through. This would be the roof that we would see. We'd see that roof, and it wouldn't necessarily be in section. It would be in elevation. So we'll change that to the light lines, a detail light line. But at this point, we're actually sectioning through the OSB sheathing. So let me copy that to approximately where it sections through. And that was right here. Okay, so that's where the cut lines are. And I'm actually going to draw a line from this intersection. Just draw it all the way across here. The other end. And I'll just cut it back. I'll trim it back a little bit. So this is the top of the OSB that we're cutting through. And I'm going to copy that down from there to there. Should have used a rectangle, but that's okay. So there's our OSB sheathing that we're cutting through. All right, next we're going to be cutting through the top chord of that truss, so I'll use a rectangle. Now these should be just a guideline because we're actually going to show the trusses in section view. So the trusses are using 2x4 pieces of lumber. So we essentially have a 1.5 inch wide by, it's 3.5 to start with. Hang on. Rectangle at 1.5, 3.5. Right, so this would be the original size of it, but remember we're cutting through on an angle, so we need to stretch this down to the bottom, okay, because we're actually cutting through on a bit of an angle, and I'm going to put an X through it. The X means that we're actually cutting through a dimensional lumber, and I'm going to create a block of that because we're going to be using that in several locations, and if we ever change it, then we want to make sure that we're doing that. So this would be a section item, and this is a truss chord. You can say top chord of the truss. Let's try top chord truss. Base point, I'll use the bottom. Now the spacing of our trusses is 24 inches on center. So I'm going to make a copy of this, 24, 48, and now I'm going to make several more copies all the way across. And I'll use the previous ones as guidelines or guide points. So this is the top chord of the truss that we're seeing in section view. I'll go all the way across until I run out of space. Now the maximum spacing is 24 inches. If you come across one that's a little bit less, like this one, that's okay. It's okay to be less than 24, but you don't want to be greater than 24. So just move that into place. Okay, so there's the top chords of our trusses. We're going to do a similar thing with the bottom chord of the trusses now. So I might actually even copy this down. And I'll just change the height of it. So I'll have to explode it. I'll adjust the little X symbol here. Okay, so now that's sectioning through the bottom chord of that truss. So I'm going to save that as a block. Call it section bottom chord. And I'll copy that across. So 24, 48, give me a couple to start from. You get the idea, right? Now, actually, the trusses in this case, they wouldn't actually extend out to the very end. There would be a subfascia there. The subfascia is going to be a little bit larger, but we're gonna move this back a little bit. So let's copy it from this edge here to this edge here, and we'll probably have to end up replacing this with what's happening with the subfascia at that end. So we'll have to revisit that a little bit later. And let's move this. Okay, so the trusses they go over top of the building, but not into, we don't have trusses that are creating that roof section, so we'll come back to that a little bit later. Now that I have that in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my wall. So I'm going to take my wall assembly from my transverse section. Now I know you guys probably don't have that drawn yet, but you will once you go through the video. Part 1. I'm going to copy that across to the other side. It didn't grab my top plates for some reason. There you go. And I'll do the same thing with the wall on this side. The reason why I'm choosing different walls for these plates or for these wall sections is because they are actually one side is drywall, the other side is 3/8 OSB. We don't want to get those mixed up. All right, so this wall would actually extend. I'll use my stretch command. This wall would actually extend right to the underside of the trusses. So it'll be raised up a little bit. Oops. So again, use my stretch command right to the underside of the trusses. And then we have our floor system, so I'm going to copy this entire floor system. Take out the wall plates of the wall above. Yeah, looks good. I'll make a copy here. Why did that? Hang on. Try that again. That's better. Now, what didn't get copied were these joists, so I'm going to make a copy of those, place them in the building. Now, in the longitudinal section, we're actually going to see these joists, and we're going to see them all the way across. Longitudinal section shows the joist all the way across. We don't show that in the transverse section because we're actually looking at the side of one of the joists that would go from end to end. So it's actually being supported by the wall on one side and the wall on the other side, and you're just seeing the length of that joist. But in the longitudinal section, we're actually going to see each of those joists coming towards us. So the spacing of those joists is going to be 16 inches on center. Now, engineered joists typically have about a 19.2 inches on center, but we're going to leave that up to whoever's doing the design to determine what the actual spacing will be, and they'll specify the actual spacing, but we're going to show it 16 inches for now rather than 19.2. It's just a little bit rounder of a number. I could probably use the array command, but I didn't. Alright, so there would be the all the joists in section there, and we're going to take out a couple lines. We don't see this line at the top, and we don't see this line at the bottom. And I'm going to do a stretch command, and I'm actually going to stretch all of this to the very end. This, for some reason, got moved down, so move that back up. There we go. Oh, it didn't go far enough. Alright, we got to do a few more copies here, so actually I'll copy a whole bunch at once. That gets us pretty close. Yep. Just even out the spacing near the ends. And then we'll do our garage walls. So the garage walls are different height than the main floor walls. Actually, I'm going to copy everything from here down. You can copy my floor slab. Copy all of this over. Let's do that. See how it worked out here. Yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. Now for all this, we can actually just mirror it. Once we have it mostly in place, we can just do a mirror image. We're going to choose the center. If we've done it properly, it should be lined up. If you want to check that, yep, this looks good. I'm missing a top plate and a cap plate here, so I'm just going to copy these down. Here's my top plate and cap plate. Okay, I got my floor. Now what's underneath there is the rigid insulation. So I'll be including some hatching. Just looks like this. This is rigid insulation hatching. I'll be putting that in. I'm not going to do that with you guys though. Do that later. It just takes too long. Insulation on the sides. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a stretch command here. This stretch command is such an awesome command too. I don't know if you guys are getting used to using it or not. Hopefully you've seen me use it and a little curious as to how it works, but it's great. It saves me a ton of time. Alright, so there's the beginnings of our longitudinal and transverse sections. You can see once you have one created, the other one's actually quite easy. It's quite easy to get to level of near completion. Now the only thing we need to do is we need to add in, lines in elevations. So what would you see in elevations? We're going to use light lines for those. Now I would see probably the trusses in elevation here. Right, so everywhere I had a truss in elevation, I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to see, you'll be able to see the line as it goes up, and you'll be able to see these lines here. Right, you'll be able to see all that in elevation view. So you use your elevation line type. There's going to be some sheathing that's going to be going up on the outside of the truss at the very end of the wall, so we want to make sure we include that. Okay, so that would be that sheathing. It's going to be on both sides. Now in terms of the element that would be on the end here, we're looking at the fascia and the soffit. So we're actually going to be sectioning through some soffit which follows the line of the underside of the top chords of those trusses. So we'll draw a rectangle for those. Let's make it 16 by negative 0.38 inch, so 0.375. Now we're actually going to have a 2x6 fascia in section here. So I might get rid of some of these lines just to declutter a little bit. And so that we can see kind of what would happen here. So now if we do a rectangle, and we do 1.5 by 5.5. Now that's going to be on a bit of an angle. So it might be a little bit more. We might have to stretch it a little bit. It's too difficult to figure out, so I'm just going to place it in here. This would be the fascia that we would see in section. I might just stretch it out just a half an inch, because it is going to be a bit of an angle, so it would be a little bit bigger than a normal 5.5, 1.5, or a normal 2x6. And I'll just cut back some of these elements. So the soffit would go to there. So it's going to look something like this. And we may actually have we call it a cleat. Just on the opposite side. So that just provides a place for the soffit to fasten into as well. So it would be a 2x4. It would follow the underside. That would be on the outside of the wall, actually. So let's move that over. And this should go all the way to the top. There we go. Turn that in the middle. There we go. So there's our sheathing. This would be a little bit of a cleat on the outside so we can fasten our soffit in. And there we have our fascia, subfascia. I'm going to put in my drywall here. Okay, so that would be the drywall on the underside of the truss bottom chords. And I would have insulation in here as well. So for the insulation, you're going to use this line type. It's detail insulation. That's going to be the current layer now. And what you want to do is you want to actually draw a line that's going to be about 6 inches up. Now the thickness of that insulation is about 12 inches. So you want to pick a line or pick a point that's halfway in between. So I just used the inference there and went 6 inches up. And the actual scale in the properties of that line type is going to be based off of 12 inches. Now, just through trial and error, you'll see in the first part of the video, trial and error, we figured out that 6 inches of insulation was 0.28. So 12 inches of insulation should be 0.56. And you see that gets us pretty close. Maybe it's a little bit more. Let's try 0.58. Let's try 0.6. Yeah, that gets us even closer. So if we were to do an actual measurement here, in terms of distance, from here to here, that's about almost 12 inches. So it doesn't have to be exact. We just need to represent a certain amount of insulation. So we're actually sectioning through that bad insulation that's going to be in the trusses, all on the warm side, or the against the drywall. So it helps keep things warm inside that house. And now all that's left is really just detail items. So adding in the walls that you would see in section or elevation based on the floor plan. So you'd have to move these now, move them around so that they're located underneath of the elements in section. We'll be showing the stairs, because you would see the stairs coming off the landing, right? You can pretty much just copy your elevations. Once you finish your elevations, you can essentially copy this whole landing assembly. Let's do that now. Might as well copy the bracket too. Let's see how that works. All right, so let's copy it from the top of the foundation wall. Use that as our reference point. We'll paste it on the top of the foundation wall here. Okay, you might have to delete a few things, so like delete the corner board. Oh, and it didn't copy our landing. That's nice. I'm pretty sure I did say to copy it. There you go. That's better. But in this view, we wouldn't see the railing, because the railing is behind us in terms of the section. We would see the, we wouldn't even see this here because it's behind us as well. So you gotta think in 3 dimensions. Think about what is it that you're going to be actually sectioning through. What is it you're going to see? What is it that you won't see? And you base that all off the section line, where that section line is located. So again, we don't have to show the back of the stairs. We would see the newel post. We might see a little bit of the a section through the bottom rail and the top rail, and we might see the spindles in elevation.